This is Stewardship Sunday, so that's why we're honoring our ancestors, all those who worked hard and gave and made this place here that we get to love and be close to each other within. There's a picture in the hallway by the kitchen of this corner of the property here before this building was here, and we're glad it's here. And those of you who were here at the beginning, thank you. My colleague Bill Neely from the Princeton UU congregation tells a story about something he liked to do as a kid. He was from a somewhat dysfunctional family. He would save up his money from his paper route and so forth to go into town to see a movie all by himself. He couldn't afford it every week, but at least every other week he'd get on the bus, and he lived out in the suburbs in an apartment, and the bus didn't come very often, so he had to time this carefully to catch the right movie and get the bus and then get back, and otherwise it would be far into the evening and the parents would be mad at him. So this was a little logistical challenge. It was also a financial challenge, the bus ticket, and then he would give himself a treat to go over to the arcade and play a couple of video games and maybe have a candy and come back. The problem was he would worry about getting back the time, but also he wanted to be careful not to spend the money he had saved. He had to have enough for the bus fare. There was no charging the bus fare. You had to have the correct change, and so he would count this all out and count all his money. Sometimes he didn't have enough to do this, and he'd have to miss a Saturday. But usually he was mainly concerned about the money on the way back. He would put that in his left pocket, so there would be there a little extra to be sure that you can see some anxiety. This is financial worry. And in homes where there is stress, there's worry, and it stays with us. You might get to a place where you're fairly well off financially and still have that nagging feeling from early in life. So anyway, this one Saturday, he had seen his movie, he had played his video game, he'd had his candy bar, and he got to the bus stop in time. He gets on the bus, reaches into his left pocket, and nothing. And he doesn't know how or what happened. He checks his other pocket, his back pocket, and he's breaking a sweat. And the other people are putting their change in and getting on the bus, and the bus driver's looking at him and eager to get started. And he's about to turn to get off the bus and try to figure out how to get home, because it would be a very long walk and he'd be very, very late and he'd be in big trouble, when a fellow sitting on the front seat that had just put his change in, had just gotten on, says, "I got you, kid." And he stands up and puts the money in the bus, in the spot there. And Bill says, "Thank you, sir, thank you." And he gives this little nod. The guy, this little tipping of the head, and telling the story years later, he says, "That was so cool." The way he kind of tipped his head. Now the guy was dressed in a khaki work shirt and Levi's. He probably worked maintenance at the mall where the theater was. And he pulled out a book, and the kid goes into the back and takes his ride. And on the way out, he looks over and says, again, "Thank you so much." And the guy just nods again. And he's off. He never saw the guy again. So we think of the times when somebody has done us a favor. Or maybe we were the guy there that did the favor. These small financial transactions where you see some need and you step up, or somebody stepped up for us. I visited with Peter Hasland not long after taking this esteemed post that I'm filling here, and he's been around. He was here in the early days and all, and I said to him, "Stepping into this, I feel like I'm a caretaker." And he said, "Right now, we're all caretakers of Live Oak. Okay, we're doing better, but we're not out of the woods. We've had some difficulties and some financial challenges. This year, we had to draw down on a special account that was for special projects. It was the bequest money that we don't touch. We had to do that. So we're essentially living beyond our means right now. We're the little train that broke down." Now I got to pick this story out, and it was my favorite from childhood. And I didn't ever notice that the little engine that could was female, but thank you. I just know it was a good story. And I chose it, and then I looked for a copy, and I didn't see the pictures I wanted. I had been raised on the 1930 pictures that probably belonged to my mother or something, because it was antique. And I went back and found the older pictures online, and so we could see those. The story holds up, the story of perseverance. But early in the tale, abundance loses steam. We have this wonderful description of what's on that train: joy and food, nurturance, everything we need, but it can't get up over the mountain. A big fancy train comes by and we ask for help. It's important to be able to ask for help. But the big fancy train is too impressed with itself. That's our own busyness. That's our own self-importance. Sometimes we're too busy to help ourselves, much less others, much less the causes we care about. So we wait, and another train comes along. This is the one that bears burdens. This is the freight train. This is the part of us that lifts the loads, maybe to a fault. And maybe we're carrying too much sometimes. And something important slips by us because we're so burdened by it. Will not help. Then an old train comes by. This is when we get tired. This is when we get depleted. We have maybe taken on too much. We have been at it too long, and no help to ourselves or others. But finally, a little train comes along. It's very important that it's little. It really doesn't pull cars up over a mountain. It just works in the switchyard to move cars around. It's a smaller engine, but it is willing to try. Here is the part of ourselves that doesn't really feel up to the task, doesn't know if we can contribute, if we can be of much help. A lot of insecurity, a lot of low self-esteem, but we try. This she hitches up and pulls. I think I can, I think I can, and is able to do what is necessary. And what is happening, as Christina mentioned, what is happening is we have joy, we have toys, we have food, we have the things of life, the things of abundance, the things of happiness. We also have a sense of community. I am thinking, and this is not exactly in the story, this is where I'm seeing a little something between the lines, that they're all cheering that little engine on. This is a community that's going up over the mountain. This is the little congregation that could. I thought I could. I thought I could. I thought I could. Comedian Jack Benny had a reputation as an inflexible tightwad. He was frugal. He was stingy. He was a skinflint. One day in a skit in his show, a would-be robber stops him on the street and pokes a gun in his ribs and says, "Your money or your life?" And there's this long pause. And the robber sticks the gun in his ribs. He says, "Your money or your life?" There's this long pause. Finally, Benny says, I'm thinking. It's the longest laugh in the history of radio shows. They had to cut some other stuff because people thought it was so funny. Okay, are we sure about it? What is important to us? Sorting out the place of money in our lives is deep work. Ben Franklin has some observations. Who is wise? Those who learn from everyone. Who is powerful? Those who govern their passions. Who is rich? Those who are content. And who is that? Nobody. But contentment doesn't entirely come from having enough money. In fact, that isn't a place that security comes from. And very, very, very well-off people are still scraping it together and hoarding it. It's childhood stuff. We often inherit parents, grandparents, intergenerational stress about money. Time from when people got off the boat and had nothing. Time from when families got through the Depression and lost their farms. It's in our bodies. That stuff is carried down, and we worry about having enough. When we have enough, when we definitely have enough, you don't feel that. And people with very good financial situations often feel like, I'm not doing well, I'm not doing well. Some of that is some kind of redemption story where we have to prove ourselves, and this is the American dream. We prove ourselves by our bank accounts, which means it's got to be in the bank account to count, which means we mustn't spend it or contribute it, or, so there is that lurking demon of insecurity. But if you think about it, money is shorthand for talent and time and energy. It is a reflection of who we deeply are. It is how we can purchase some comforts, some amusements, but also dedicate ourselves to values that are rewarding. And those are the things that will make us feel fulfilled. Money is a technology in a way. It connects our physical realities. It informs our location. We are in one of the most expensive housing markets in the world. It certainly affects our relationships. And money can be a great teacher. Money, in a way, gives us feedback about how we are in the world. It is a mirror to our personality. Confronting the complexes we might have about money requires a willingness to look at emotional stuff, feelings of deficiency, feelings like we haven't done enough, we haven't done well enough, we haven't proved ourselves well enough, things like that. Have I managed my money well? That's a question that people being honest with themselves always have doubts about. And there's that inner critic that says we should have done everything better, and the things we've done well, we should have done sooner. You can't win. You cannot win. Don't even argue with it. Just try to distract yourself, because it will not give you a break. When asked how much money was enough, Henry Ford replied, just a little bit more. So there is a tension. There is a tension between security and some of our higher values. It will not go away. Of course, you need money to be safe, and you need to make sure that your family's needs are covered. But that doesn't require everything. There are other values to serve that are important, that gives us a sense of meaning. Two men were marooned on an island. I've told this story before. I like this story. I'm just apologizing for you may have heard this from me. The two men are marooned on an island. One is pacing back and forth, worried and scared. The other is sitting back and sunning himself. And the worried one says, how can you be so calm? Aren't you afraid to die here? Oh, no. It's stewardship month at my congregation, and I haven't turned my card in yet. They will find me. One way to get a sense of our values, how we are living our values, is to open that website and look at our bank activity. You can see who you are right there on your credit card bill, on the checks that cleared, where your energy is going. And the energies of unification, of connection with others, those tend to be more subtle than the values, the energies of separation, of personal dependency on yourself, on self-reliance. That can be the go-to place, and the energy that goes to connecting, that will show our true nature. My own part in this congregation is from day one. I was at the first organizing meeting. Gail was there. I don't see Pat today, but there are a couple of, hey, there she is. She was there. And this is before there was a membership book. This is about 40 years ago. And for this purpose, I actually crunched numbers to see how much I had given. And it wasn't as much over the years. About 3% of what I have earned has gone to this church. And I have other causes I support. I'm thinking, more of it should have gone to the church. But I'm glad it was. And there were a couple of years when I was very busy. I had a job that took me on the road pretty much every weekend, and I was rarely here. I made sure to keep the pledge. I thought, I'm not there as much, but it's still going on. I want it to be there when I get back, figuring I would not be able to keep doing that forever, and that was the case. When I started my doctoral studies, a person who cared about me gave me a gift. It was a generous gift. It was a very nicely made leather briefcase with my name embossed on it in gold. It was a nice thing. And I was grateful, and it was in honor of this and encouragement, and I wouldn't need a briefcase. I had a briefcase. It was a sturdy briefcase. It was a little scratched up. It was not a bad briefcase. And I thought, this is going to be taxing. That thing is going to get banged up. I will set that by my desk here, and that I'm going to use when I'm finished with the studies. So it's all pristine and everything. So I set it there, and I got about it. And of course, as these things go, it took longer than I expected, and it was a lot more work. And I finally finished. And I took all the stuff out of that now pretty ratty briefcase and reached for the one that I had set beside my desk. And I hadn't realized there's a window there. It's a long window. It was beside a door, and it went within a foot of the floor. And I hadn't realized that occasionally that might have been left open in rain or something, because that nice briefcase had somehow gotten damp in those years that it had been sitting there, and it was all mildewed. It was completely shot, and I had to throw it away. It was not redeemable, and I had not used it once. The point being, play your game, use your stuff, take your shot. Now is now. Irma Bombeck was asked if she saved up her best ideas for later columns, and she said, no, I don't save anything. My pockets are empty at the end of a week. So is my gas tank. So is my file of ideas. I trot out the best I've got, and come next week, I bargain, whimper, make promises, cower, throw myself on the mercy of the Almighty for just 3 more columns in exchange for cleaning my oven. I didn't get to this point overnight. I came from a family of savers who were sired by poverty and worshiped at the altar of self-denial. Throughout the years, I've seen a fair number of my family who have died leaving candles that have never been lit, appliances that never got out of the box. It gets to be a habit. I have learned that silver tarnishes when it is not used. Perfume turns to alcohol. Candles melt in the attic over the summer, and ideas that are saved for a dry week often become dated. I've always had a dream that when I am asked to give an accounting of my life to a higher court, it will be like this. So, empty your pockets. What's left of your life? Any dreams that were unfilled? Any unused talent that we gave you when you were born that you still have left? Any unsaid compliments or bits of love that you haven't spread around? And I will answer, I've nothing to return. I've spent everything you gave me. I'm as naked as the day I was born. And her last summary line was, it's not the one who dies with the most toys who wins, but rather the one whose last check just about empties their bank account. So what matters is what we do to add love, goodness, and beauty to the world. The takeaways for today: remember the people who have helped us, the guy on the bus. Study our complicated emotions about money as a path to transformation. There are things we will learn about ourselves if we stare directly into that most intimate part of our life. 3, ask ourselves, are our behaviors in line with the values we attempt to live by? 4th, invest in connection with others. It is our true security. 5th, it's all about the size of our hearts, not the size of our houses. Appreciate what generosity does to us. And finally, don't hold back your good stuff. Live like your life depended on it. I will close with the words of Anais Nin. And then the day came when the risk to remain tight into a bud was more painful than the risk it took to blossom. Namaste. And so it goes. Let us join and sing.